is.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Lancaster County Board of Commissioners special meeting for the 1 in 6 hearing, the Bridge Improvement Program that we'll be hearing from the county engineer momentarily. For introduction purposes, my name is Todd Wilchin. I am the chair of the county board this year. On my left, we have fellow commissioners Deb Shore and Roma Abenson. On my right, fellow commissioner and vice chair Jennifer Brinkman. Joining us from the county engineer's office is the county engineer Pam Dingman. From the county clerk's office, we have the county clerk Dan Nolte and Monet McCollum. Now, if you'd all please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As we get started, just one housekeeping item. I know that there have been a number of individuals who have signed up to testify. For this evening's format, the county clerk will call your name if you'd come up, and he'll swear you in. We're allotting 5 minutes for public comment this evening. And if you want, how many would you like to come up? Oh, I'm sorry. And just a reminder that this meeting is subject to the Nebraska Open Meetings Act, a copy of which is at the entrance of the room. With that, go ahead and call the county engineer up. I'm going to go ahead and start the public hearing for the 1 in 6 Road and Bridge Improvement Program.
I think, Pam, I'll go ahead and swear you in and this as a public hearing. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony we're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. So, good evening and welcome to the FY19 1 in 6 roadway hearing. This is almost like prom to an engineer, although I may be the only one in the room that thinks so. Tonight, I want to go ahead and introduce myself. Again, as Todd stated, I'm Pam Dingman. I am the county engineer. Here's my contact information up on here, but I also want to take a moment to introduce my staff, and I'm going to try to remember all of them without looking at them, so it could be interesting, right? First, we have Larry Legg. He is the county roadway engineer. He joined us this last year from Nebraska Department of Roads. I still don't quite know how I talked him into leaving roads after 39.5 years, but we're really glad to have him on staff. Thank you, Larry. Next is Chad Packard. He sports the most interesting hairdo in county engineering, and he is also the structural engineer, and so he's the one that takes care of our bridges and comes up with some pretty genius ideas to keep them stabilized whenever possible. We also have Eric Hubble, our GIS guy, with us tonight. Ron Bohati, he moved up this year to be our head of roadway maintenance, and we're super excited about that. Ken Schroeder is sitting in front of Ron. He is, by statute, defined as my deputy, who is not an engineer but a surveyor, and so he's the county surveyor. I'm going to do one of these. If we go to the way back, because it must be like church, right? Everyone's in the back, except for you. Yeah, you know, to be in the front. We have Mike Clark, who is the superintendent for the Northwest District, maintenance district of the county. Brandon Kramer, who moved up this year, and he has moved into the position of being the maintenance superintendent for the southwest quadrant of the county. Next to him is Jeff Mansky. And Jeff is the superintendent for the southeast quadrant of the county. Leroy Giesler moved up this year to be Ron's assistant, and he's the assistant maintenance superintendent. Curtis Perconi is the superintendent in Waverly. And just so you know how hardcore Curtis is about taking care of our roads, if it's going to snow a lot, Curtis actually drives in and sleeps in the shop so that he can be there in the morning. And also joining us from planning, we have Mike Brinzio from Long Range Planning, and he's the one that helps us out with the MPO and the Long Range Planning at County Engineering. Did I miss anybody? Oh, Jim, you're hiding behind Ron. I'm going to blame Ron on that. So Jim Shakowski is the right-of-way agent for the county, and so if we're doing construction in your backyard or your front yard, you're probably going to hear from Jim and his team. So, oh, and where did Angela go? Oh, she's way back there. And Angela Zolkel joined us from the clerk's office about 3 years ago now, and she is our administrative officer. So they're with sort of only looking a little bit behind me, and we got everyone. Thank you for your help, Deb. So I want to begin tonight by talking about safety. And there's a lot of things going on in county engineering across the nation in regards to safety and how to make our rural roads safer. So I wanted to start with a few facts that were pointed out to me this week by staff who attended a webinar. And it was interesting for me to find out that Nebraska rates third in all the states in number of unpaved roads at about 71.8%. With that being said, we rate the highest in fatalities on our rural roads in Nebraska at 14.81% of fatalities, which is significant given the number of traffic on these roads compared to urban sections. Some of the traffic trends that we're experiencing this year, not just in Lancaster County or in Nebraska, but around the country, are in 2016, which are the latest numbers that have been assembled. There was an increase in fatalities of 5.6% nationwide. 20% of all drivers will be involved in a serious crash. We do try to refer to them as crashes, not accidents. That's nomenclature from the Federal Highway Department. And 29% of all fatalities are impaired drivers. A little bit on distracted driving, because I do think it is a big issue for all of us. National trends say the cell phone use has actually decreased 3.3% for drivers. It's interesting. I feel bad about this. Cell phone use while driving is higher among females than males. And so, ladies, I think we all have a goal, and we maybe need to think a little harder than our male counterparts about putting that cell phone down. And also, the age group that cell phone usage is highest amongst is 16 to 24-year-olds. When we're looking at overall traffic culture, I think it's interesting because we behave differently in our cars sometimes than we do face-to-face with other people. So 81.1% of drivers, which is a lot, as engineers, we just couldn't let that 0.1 go, by the way, believe that reading a text or an email while driving is a serious safety threat. However, 40.2% of us do it. And so that's just something to think about. We've talked a lot about safety and safe driving in Lancaster County. Sometimes I think we maybe need to have just a little bit of fun with it. So I kind of like the phony on Don't Be That Driver, along with my favorite, the Fashionably Late. But these are all some reminders about how we could all strive to be better in our vehicles. So I wanted to do something a little different tonight that I haven't done before, and that is I wanted to note that in the last year, October 1st through October 1st, we've had 4 fatalities on Lancaster County roads. And all of these people were somebody's sister, somebody's daughter, somebody's mother. And it's a big deal. So if we could tonight, I would just like to take a brief moment of silence to think about those that passed this year on our roads and to think about how we could be better in our car. Thank you. So I think that one of the main themes of tonight could be how high's the water, right? I've been joking with people that in the last 5 years since I became county engineer, we've had a 500-year flood, and we've actually had a couple 100-year events. And I think that the world is changing, and it doesn't seem like we can get a half an inch of water anymore. And that is true in Lancaster County. That's true for us where we've been at actually the last 4 or 5 days. We actually did hit 100-year flood levels during the weekend of Labor Day. So it's interesting also, it's been determined that once your bridges have endured a 500-year flood, that they quickly deteriorate. And that's a new report that's out from Texas A&M. I don't think it's a big surprise to anyone in the audience or to the commissioners with the number of bridges that I've had to close for public safety the last couple of years. I want to start tonight by talking about studies that we completed in FY 2018. We did a speed study on Saltillo, kind of in conjunction with the safety study that we had previously done from 27th to 70th Street. In addition to that, we did a safety study on 68th Street from Saltillo to Firth Road, and we did a safety study on 148th from Old Cheney to Amberley. We have adjusted the speed on Saltillo. Those signs are currently in place. On 68th Street and 148th Street, the study kind of was 3 parts. It was a safety study, it was an operational study, and it was systemic, what is needed to improve these corridors. And I'll be the first to say that I was really surprised to find out that 148th Street needs to be 4 lanes prior to 2040. And that's significant. In addition to that, I was surprised at the number of improvements that were suggested in these studies on 68th Street. And my staff and I are still trying to figure out how we can implement some of these items to get the best improvement for the lowest cost. In addition to that, the commissioners formed the infrastructure task force, and the study is now been complete and presented. It is available on the website. In fact, it's available on the commissioner's website, and there's pieces of it available on my website also. So if you're interested in the outcome of the infrastructure task force, I think the thing that I want everyone tonight to know is that this task force did conclude that critical funding only, the critical funding only gap for Lancaster County engineering is $9 million a year. That's critical funding for bridges only. If we're to add pavement and paving in there, that number goes to $15 million a year. That's a significant shortfall in funding for my organization. So I want to talk a little bit about things that are currently under construction, and I may say that the farmers and I really hope that it does stop raining before it freezes, and I guess we'll find out this weekend if we're really going to get to have that wish or not. We are trying to get the last lift of pavement in on 54th Street. So the first lift is in, we just need to get the top on it. It's cold, and so we're gonna have to wait. Asphalt placement is 45 and rising, and what's interesting is we're not gonna have that for the next several mornings. And so I think we'll have another warm stent, but hopefully it'll be warmer and drier. In addition to that, we're behind on overlays, so we do have a few more areas that we're looking to overlay before the end of the construction season. On bridge maintenance, we were able to stabilize several bridges, H66 and H119. H119 is still underway, as is 175 and a few of the others below. I wanted to talk a little bit about construction, and in particular, some of the things that go on our construction sites. And this slide shows J143. I took a lot of heat from the public this year for J143 being closed an additional 3 or 4 weeks due to weather. And the progress of these projects becomes really complex, and Mother Nature was just not with us with this particular structure replacement. So you may recall J143 on North 148th Street, just north of O Street, was an old WPA bridge that had box culvert stuck on the end of it. And the top right slide actually shows what that looked like when the water was pumped out from underneath it. And just so you have order of magnitude, this is about 20 feet wide. So here's a 5-foot hole directly underneath 148th Street. That's the reason why we closed it. I was able to open it back up again once the university assisted us in doing a detailed finite element analysis, but it was time to get in and replace this structure. There's a worker in the middle slide here, so you can get just, again, order of magnitude for how big this structure was. This is the floor being laid in, and of course 148th Street will go above it. This is the box culvert right before Labor Day weekend, and we were really excited that Thursday before Labor Day weekend. We were getting dirt in, and we were just a couple feet from the top of this structure when a storm rolled in, and all the trucks got stuck at the borrow pit, and we couldn't get any more dry dirt. And so what happened after Labor Day weekend was, this is the site, and it's kind of difficult to tell necessarily what you're looking at. Here's the opening of that box culvert that you see up in the top picture, and there's about 10 feet of water in there. And so when we get rain in the middle of a big project like this, and then we have to pump out the culvert and clean everything back up and dry it back out and recompact the soil, it does add significant time to the completion of these projects. So here's the picture at the bottom. It's interesting because it's a bright sunny day in this picture, but this was also a night that the storms rolled in before we could get all of this matting down. We were able to open the road the next morning. But I think what's interesting when you look at this last picture is it's not really very exciting, and I kind of feel bad about that. But we do these things, we build these structures, we bury them. They are out of sight, out of mind, but they are significant to all of us, and they are very complex. Here's a picture of H119. It is located on 176th Street, just to the east side of Camp Creek. This bridge is also scour critical. It required embankment stabilization, and also what you're seeing in the top picture here is a dead man that was added to, and steel sheeting added to the abutment of this bridge to tie it back and lock it in place. In addition, there is a significant amount of riprap or rock that are has been put on the embankments to stabilize it. This is a picture from a few weeks ago, and you can see with those rains of Labor Day weekend, we had an additional failure plane open up on that embankment. So we were fortunate to be stabilizing this bridge just in time. In 2018, and I've said it the last several meetings, we still are waiting on FEMA reimbursement. So although we put the money in the Lancaster County Engineer's budget like we're going to receive it, we do the same with our checkbook as citizens do with their checkbooks, and that's if the money doesn't come, we go ahead and scale back some of our building. And so we're still waiting on, I think we're down to about $300,000. And I've joked as we keep getting rain that we can't have another FEMA flood event until they've paid for the last one. And my mother was kind enough to tell me that she doesn't really think it works that way, but I'm going to just keep praying it does. In addition to that, Bridge C91 is still the detour route for construction that's on Highway 79. Of course, the state is experiencing the same thing the county is with construction. They're behind on their job because of rain also, so we may have to wait to replace that bridge a little bit longer because it still needs to be used as the detour route. Here's a photo that's in your packets, a map showing the details of the projects that we did this last year. Red X's are bridges, purple are overlays, and the red line is new pavement. If we're to move on to what we expect to do in 2019, we're really looking at no new paving projects. And when we did the infrastructure task force study, it was really determined by the task force that they would like us to concentrate on the reliability of the system versus new pavement. And that meant really focusing on getting these closed bridges back open. However, with that being said, the South Beltway is coming, and this time it's really happening. We expect it to start sometime in 2020 or 2021. We need to prepare for that corridor by grading South 82nd Street. And the reason is there's a connection there. If we grade South 82nd Street and then look at paving it the year after, this enables us to get a paved corridor all the way down to Hickman. In addition to that, we're looking at a number of overlays. In the next couple years, we're going to focus a little more on tack sealing and seal coats and some alternatives to asphalt overlay that we hope will preserve our asphalt while saving the county money. When I talk about proposed projects for 2019, a lot of these projects will be on the structural end will be associated with our scour critical bridges. I put up on the screen a map of our scour critical bridges. The bridges that we have closed to date have not been a surprise. They have all been on this map. In fact, some of them have been on this map for quite some time, like C91 that we hope to construct next year. In fact, Bridge C91 has been on the county's 1 and 6 program since the late 90s. And so it's kind of a poster child for how truly far behind we are with funding and financing. In order to try to focus our dollars in a more efficient way, after I had to close 148th Street, which was a major paved corridor and really caused a lot of issues for Waverly. I know that we have the mayor here tonight as well as the Waverly school superintendent. He had a lot of difficulty getting his school kids around these closures. So I kind of drilled back with how we were focusing our dollars on county roads and bridges and said, you know, why don't we look at structures that are not in good condition or critical condition under pavement. And I really hope that would give us an additional focus and be a little more clear. However, when the structural engineer presented me with his exhibit of bad structures, I had this moment where I said, holy North 14th Street. We actually have a number of bad bridges on North 14th Street, starting with Bridge F88. F88 has also been on the 1 and 6 program for replacement since the late 90s. At one point, we did have all the environmental permitting for this. It is over saline wetlands and saline marshes, and we didn't have funding to build the bridge. So now the permit's expired. We're in the process of getting the permit so that we can hopefully work on this bridge. With that being said, though, we have 3 more bridges south of F88 and in between the city of Lincoln that are all those WPA work progress bridges on spread footings where the previous county engineer actually kind of added to the abutments and put new decks on them in the 70s to try to stretch them along another 20 years. And now, of course, they've stretched along more like 40 years. And so that you can maybe have a quick idea of what I'm talking about, this is Bridge F78. F82 and F86 are of similar construction type. You may note the deck has a lot of rust on the edge of it. And then in addition to it, you may notice the holes on the side because this was redecked with used bridge beams. Using used materials to redo our bridges was something that was done regularly up until the 80s. It is a problem for us. You may notice that the deck of this bridge is failing. And so this structure very badly needs to be replaced. It's also scour critical. You can see it with some significant flow underneath it in the picture below. Unfortunately, we have 3 of these. We are currently in the process, and in fact, I hope it to be on the agenda on Tuesday, of getting an engineering contract to design these. I'm hoping they can all be converted from bridges to box culverts, similar to what we did last year with the program. We know that's about 1/3 the price of a bridge. And there's this but for what? So these are 1930s structures, and engineering has become incrementally better over the last 100 years. However, in the 1930s, they didn't size structures. They just said, hey, we need a bridge, and we put it in bank to bank. That's what we have. When we're sizing these structures, we're kind of finding that sometimes we can size them down a little, and sometimes it's the opposite, and they have to be sized up a little. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that all of these can be converted to box culverts, but there's one that's going to end up being right on the edge, and we have to study it before we can make that determination. I'm just going to go back here a little bit. So bridges next year that we're looking at would be the C91, the three F bridges, hopefully that we can convert to box culverts. E171 is a bridge that we recently closed. We're also hoping to be able to convert that to a box culvert. M164 is a larger bridge. I believe it's about 50 feet in span. That might be just a little too big to go to a box culvert, but we're gonna go ahead and size it. H115 is the bridge that we have the FEMA hazard mitigation grant on. So that's a 75 share with FEMA and NEMA. And Y181 is small enough that I'm fairly certain we can change that to a box culvert. So we're also gonna do some bridge maintenance on Bridge 037, which is the bridge on Old Cheney at Wilderness Park. And we're doing that in conjunction with watershed management at the City of Lincoln, wastewater management at the City of Lincoln, and the NRD. And then in addition to that, we're gonna really focus on our culvert program and getting our pipe culverts fixed too. So here's a map of what the improvements for 2019 look like. You may see the blue line on Saltillo. That is engineering. That's doing the engineering on that Saltillo project. And then you see another couple of projects with some engineering on it. As we go on to 2020 to 2024, we continue to look at improvements to Saltillo Road, improvements to South 68th Street from Roca into Hickman, pavement on South 82nd Street, engineering on 98th Street, A to O, and Adams to Holdridge. And then, of course, the additional bridges that are either closed or not in very good shape. So, and here is a map. Again, you'll note that there's not a lot of paving on the map, but there are a lot of red X's which indicate bridge replacement. And so that is my presentation for tonight, and we can move on to the next part of the meeting.
Any questions for the county engineer before we open it up to public testimony? Okay, seeing none. Okay, Mr. Clerk, would you please read off the first name?
The first person is Mike Werner. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Move the microphone over. It's,
Right here?
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's not your fault. That's,
There, can you hear okay there, Todd?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, okay.
yep.
I'm Mike Werner. I'm actually the mayor of Waverly, and I do live out there at 10220 East Oak Lane Circle. What I'm here to talk to you tonight about is, first of all, I support your 1 and 6 year plan that I believe what the county engineer depicted is probably needs to be done, if not more of it. But we definitely support the plan is what I want here to say for sure, that you understand that, the county commissioners do. But what I'm here to talk about is the city of Waverly, we are going to request that a project be added to 1 and 6. And I want to give a little background to that request so that everybody can understand that. I do know the county did pay for a safety study on on North 148th Street this summer. You preliminarily shared some numbers from that study at the August meeting. They're a little mind-boggling. They kind of scare you almost, to say the least. On top of that, I wanted to make the county commissioners aware that at our city council meeting on August 28th, and then again on September 10th, we had Channel 8 News out there at our place, which is unusual for us at Waverly to have the television crews out there. But what it stemmed from was a lot of constituency uproar over the fact that when school started, we had a construction project as well. The city did, that was overhauling part of Amberley Road. It wasn't completely striped, which didn't help any. It's a lot wider. It's a 3-lane road, not a 2-lane road. There was immense amount of parents concerned about safety of their children crossing that road, and rightly so. Since that time, since those 2 meetings, we've taken some short-term solution actions to try to alleviate that problem. But the fact really remains that the amount of traffic on 148th is hitting numbers, and enough of that traffic, even in the safety study the county paid for, roughly 10% of it was deemed heavy traffic. That traffic runs down 148th Street or it runs down Amberley. We have 4 schools along them 2 roads. That's creating a lot of conflict for us. We're having a lot of congestion with traffic, just truck traffic in general, trying to integrate in with our residential traffic. So with that in mind, I can't legally, Dan, read it now because there's a city council meeting going on now at Waverly, and they have not approved the resolution. I could read the resolution in draft, but they will let me know they're going to pass it. So I'd like to at least leave a copy, Todd, of that resolution for you guys. I will sign it after the meeting once the council approves it. But in there, it references the safety study the county did. It references a study that the city's undertaking now. We actually paid our consultant an additional $30,000 to do a traffic study on 148th, on 148th from Amberley Road to Highway 6, as well as on Amberley Road from 148th over to Highway 6. So it kind of picks up where Pam's and your study left off, and it completes the loop to Highway 6 on Amberley and on 148th. And we will share that data with you once we get it. But the gist of our resolution and the gist of why we're here tonight is we're respectfully asking the county commissioners to give serious thought to put Fletcher Avenue from 148th to 84th Street on the 1 and 6 year plan to be improved so that that could become a truck bypass route. Obviously, 112th Street and 134th Street would have to be paved to make the truck route effective. The city is willing to sit at the table and talk with the county about cost sharing with any improvements when it has to do with capital improvements within our ETJ. We are very willing to sit at the table and talk to you about that. That we're big enough to know that the growth of our city too, that, you know, we can't burden the county just because our city is growing. I don't think it's right that we burden the county with all the costs just because it's within the county's area. If it's within our ETJ, I think it's reasonable. The city should be willing to cost share with the county with those improvements within our extraterritorial jurisdiction. So we state that in our resolution as well, county commissioners. And I believe I just got a text where they just passed it, but I'll sign it later and we can talk later. But I just want to move on. I know I only have 5 minutes, so I just respectfully ask that you guys give this serious thought. Maybe you can come up with an alternative solution that would alleviate our pain. It is painful out there. I don't want to say this I say this because I'm a resident of our town. I've been in our town for almost 40 years. Our child went to school there. Our child was a crossing guard. When they went to school, they had kids that were older be a crossing guard. So as a result, when the parents come forward, it seemed like the only thing I could do as a resident of our town and living in a neighborhood where there is immense amount of kids crossing, I go out as a road guard, as a crossing guard on 148th and in Folkestone. And it can be almost frightening at times. Like you kind of look and say, where is all this traffic coming from? It's amazing. So thank you for your time. It's good to see all of you again, and I just respectfully ask you to consider that. What I have, Dan, is I have some data sheets here that have some maps that show our ETJ and a paving plan for Fletcher and a paving plan for Alville, should the county consider that. Make it part of the record. And I will sign this resolution. I'll leave that part of the record as well too, Dan, with you. But I did not want to give that to you till they approve it, okay? So I will hand it in later, if that's all right. So,
Any questions for Mr. Warner? I mean, I would just point out that, I mean, obviously, with 148th Street and the study that we're working with the county engineer, I think it's important that before we do anything, we study the area. And that way, whatever improvements we make are supported by any
Understood.
Kind of support. Okay.
We just need an alternative path. I think that's our main goal. And we named Fletcher. Our reason for naming Fletcher, folks, was I believe from years ago they had bought right away to make it wider, and they had done some grading, so it seemed logical. So that's why. So
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Okay, next is Corey Worrell. Do you solemnly swear from the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Well, thank you. I appreciate getting the opportunity to come out and talk to you guys tonight. My name's Corey Worrell. I'm the Superintendent of Schools in Waverly, or what we call is District 145. And I'm just here tonight to echo Mayor Werner's comments tonight. With Amberley Road changing and the width of the road changing has caused more disruption in and around our buildings. However, I think with the growth of Waverly, with the growth of Lancaster County, we are seeing a tremendous amount of traffic through our town. So I'm kind of going to come at you at a couple different angles tonight. One is the superintendent of schools, but one would also be as a parent. So my family, we have 4 young kids, and we live south of Amberley Road in the Riley Addition. The Riley Addition is a neighborhood that's roughly 2 to 3 years old. There's about 85 houses in there now with, I believe, 25 to 30 more that are still planned to go up. And really, that's a neighborhood that's full of young families and young kids that are going to our buildings, whether it be our middle school or to Hamlow or to Wiss, and ultimately even to the high school. But what we see in Waverly is, like a lot of communities, is kids walking to schools. And right now, down Amberley Road, if you were to come out and do crossing guard duty like our mayor has done, and we appreciate that, the amount of traffic both before school and after school, it's tremendous. And a lot of it is truck traffic. There's a lot of truck traffic that's going through the town, whether it be trucks that are coming south up 148th, they might still be going down 148th north to Highway 6, which hits our intermediate school, or they go left, take a left, and they go west, and they'll go right by Hamlow Elementary at 148th and Amberley, or even closer down to 140th and Amberley, which is our middle school, and then even just about a block further west is our high school. So the amount of traffic on Amberley, specifically truck traffic, is tremendous throughout the day. Obviously, with Waverly growing and the studies that have been done, we've found that 148th Street and the amount of traffic on there is really growing at a pretty rapid pace. And so what I'm asking you to do is to consider putting on your 1 and 6 year plan a way to route traffic, particularly trucks, off of Amberley Road. So what the mayor has suggested is that truck route become either Fletcher or Alvo and down to 134th or 112th. And that would help us tremendously with the safety of our kids in our school district. That's something that on the most basic level as a school district we want to be able to provide is safety, right? Safety in our schools, safety around our schools. And so again, I just ask tonight that you guys consider putting that on your 1 to 6 year plan, and I think that's something that would definitely help our community out. It would definitely help our students out and the families in and around our district. So, thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Worrell?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and the last person that signed in support is Bruce Sedovey. Do you solemnly swear from the testimony what to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. As you indicated, my name is...
Step over to the mic.
No. As you indicated, my name is Bruce Sedovey, and I don't mean to monopolize the conversation tonight, but I also am speaking in support of an alternate truck route around Waverly. As the mayor and the superintendent indicated, that would be very beneficial. Just a little bit of background. I taught in the Waverly school system for 29 years. My wife and I have lived there now for 38 years. Our children all went to school there. And as Pam Dingman mentioned earlier, whenever there's a traffic fatality, that's someone's brother, sister, child, whatever. Over the years, unfortunately, I lost a number of students. Probably the most familiar might be Amy Countryman, whose name is on the event center out here now. But she's not the only one. It averaged about 1 every 2 years, either students or former students. And you can imagine the impact that that has on not only parents and families, but on teachers and other students. So I am definitely in support of the 1 in 6 plan to make safe. I also drive grain truck in the fall now that I'm retired. And what was indicated was the 1930s structures that had been in place. And if you think about it, that technology may have been sufficient when the largest grain truck may have held 200 bushels. And now we have the smallest one that I drive is about 600 to 700 bushels of grain. And that doesn't count the big long ones that, 12 to 1500. And then you add to that the increase in the traffic, and you increase that the speed that people are going. And the bridges and the road structures need to be, adequate for what we have now. But like I said, I just wanted to reiterate a little bit that I am definitely in favor of the resolution that the mayor has presented, and thank you for your work and your time.
Okay. Any questions from Mr. Savity? Okay, thank you. Anyone else testifying in support? Okay.
Next are persons that have signed in neutral position. First one is Marlin Johnson. Do you solemnly swear affirm that the testimony I'm about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. I'm Marlin Johnson, and I first would like to address the bridge H119, and I thank the whole county engineering department, particularly Chad Packer, for the phone calls that he's made to me to coordinate activities. This is the only county that I've ever had anybody do that, and very professional and certainly very timely. So I can't really say anything bad that, I was really nervous. I will say that my crops are totally isolated with H119 being out of service. Chad called me last Friday and said, if you can harvest this weekend, which we couldn't, of course, but if you could, we'll move rock, we'll make it accessible for you to make sure that you can get in for your crop. So I commend not only him, the whole department, you guys as commissioners as well on it. So particularly, I want to address a little bit on Amberley Road. I am one of those truck drivers that go up 148th, cross over on Amberley, and sometimes to 6, actually even sometimes crossing over the overpass to get up on Waverly Road to go over onto North Highway 77. And it really makes it convenient for us to do it. I'm not opposed to another route at all, but that overpass at Waverly that allows us to cross Highway 6 and the railroad tracks is key in our path going. I mean, the safety is there. It just makes it so much easier. So when you folks look forward to other alternatives, the traffic on Highway 6 is continuing to increase at an exponential rate. The trains are always an issue. So, and I know overpasses are prohibitively expensive, but it's not only for the trucks, it's the other people that would be using them as well. So, the other thing that I encourage here is 162nd Street. I see it's a standby project, and I think priority is going to have to eventually come to that, maybe quicker than we all want to admit or realize. And the reason I say that is because of the Costco poultry plant that's going in at Fremont. Our grain markets are changing. So consequently, many of us in the northeast part of the county are going to be using 162nd to haul grain or other feedstuffs up to the Fremont area. We're already actually going to Blair, not on Lancaster County roads, but because of the Cargill plant there, I really predict that our business will come away from Blair and go into the Fremont area. There's a lot of corn produced all around, I know that, but in these markets, we're looking for the best deals we can find. Many times, that's the end user of a livestock production facility. So the only downside that I'm going to say is the project on the box culvert on 176th Street north of Fletcher. sure taken a lot longer than what I hoped it would have. I'm sure you guys all agree. I realize funding is a never-ending battle, but we would hope in the future that things maybe don't take quite as long to get accomplished. That's all I have. I'd entertain any questions.
Yeah, any questions for Mr. Johnson? No, I appreciate hearing your perspective on the, on the truck route using the RTSD bridge connecting to Waverly Road. That was useful information.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next is Tim Bittinger. No? Okay. Steve Smith. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony we're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. I'm Steve Smith, and I live on 162nd and Waverly Road. A couple little issues that I kind of wanted to solve was, I know for a fact that you guys don't take car count no more, and you do. You don't put it into effect. Years ago, when we had Don Thomas here, he always said, we're gonna do a car count, okay? Car count, car count. So we was promised 162nd, we'd get it paved in the next couple of years. Well, that went by. So, okay, we just kept going. So, and there's been 3 or 4 deaths on it. Bruce mentioned a countryman. She lived, she was a good friend of ours, and she died about a half a mile down the road from me because of the washboards. And I know probably you guys don't have the money for it, but eventually the Salt Creek and the Rock Creek is gonna cave in because of all the road traffic that we have past there. When it's dry, I drive truck too. When I hit those washboards, the blinker comes on. That's how bad it is. You know, I've been putting up with this for a long time. And I have a 1920 home, so it's close to the road. It's not far back, and there's a lot of dust. And I realize, you know, you guys have different people that need more than what we do. But, and the crown on the road, I mean, I know you have a crown on the road so the water runs off. Well, I tell you where it runs. It runs right in my yard. And over the hill, the McGill's, same thing, same thing. And one other thing I'd like to ask is, a Bluff Road and 190th Street got paved. Did they have a car count? Bluff it runs out from the school, runs over to Camp Creek. Now, Camp Creek has only got 2 days of business, that's it. 190th Street doesn't have a business at all, and they were both paved.
I mean, we can check with the county engineer,
Well,
but we do have traffic counts that are done
That's
frequently.
fine. We watch that all the time, and I can bring back all the books that I have because I come every 6 months here. Every time you guys have one, I pick up a book, and there's nothing there. And I can see a whole lot other places that pavement could be used besides those 2 places. Now, if you're gonna be a farmer, you're gonna eat a little dirt. And for 2 days a year, come on, kind of ridiculous, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, okay, that's all I really had.
Okay. We appreciate that, and we'll get back to you on that.
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next is Dustin Sutter. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony we're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. So my name is Dustin Sutter. I'm one of the pastors at Lincoln City Church. We are on the southwest corner of town, on South First Street between Pioneers and Old Cheney. First, though, I want to say thank you to the crew. Last year we were here. We were able to speak with our Southwest supervisor. We had a culvert that was actually washing out underneath of our entry, and actually was kind of washing into a box culvert on First Street. And in a very short order, it was wonderful, because I know last year you guys talked about getting more of those photographed, getting more of those documented. and the crew came out pretty quickly and fixed that. So that was really needed, really wonderful, especially with all the rain that we had this year. I fear what would have happened to our entry had they not been able to make it. So thank you again for that. But we would like to propose another project, going forward in the 1 and 6. Everything that's here, a lot of things that we've heard over the past years is good. Understand, bridges, come on, those are a very, very important thing. Need to get those done. I work also outside I work for a software company, and so I spend a lot of time, rewriting programs and taking care of old things, and in our world we call it technical debt. And on the bridge world, that's you have some 1930s technical debt, as we would call it, and it feels good to get rid of those. But also when we're re-engineering and doing things, we like to grab a hold of low-hanging fruit. And I feel that our South First Street is actually a low-hanging fruit project. It does benefit because of several projects that are really squeezing around us. We have some from the state side, we have some from the city side, and we're kind of caught in the crosshairs. With the west bypass that's going around, that west beltway, the work that's going to be happening where Old Cheney is going to be closed just to the west of our property, which will really, we feel, increase a lot of traffic up First Street, which is going to push a lot of people out to Pioneers to make it to 77, depending upon where they're coming from. Within the last year alone, I can tell you just trying to get onto Old Cheney has been very interesting. There's been a lot more in terms of people using Old Cheney to even get to 77. In lieu of some of the other projects, the other major project really is the 14th, Warlick, Old Cheney, that big project everybody knows about. I believe this week it was proposed that there may even be a 5-year hold off on that project. I believe Cindy Lamb had put that forward to say, hey, can we maybe put a 5-year pause? If that were to happen, in my mind, just judging how people are currently using traffic flow there right now, Old Cheney would become, kind of impassable, because it sounds like the West Beltway is not on hold, it's going forward. I checked, and right now it says that it's funded for construction. So as of last year, we were in a kind of pre-construction phase. Well, now we're funded. So, we know that at least it's going forward. If this other project gets put on hold for another 5 years, that means Old Cheney is going to be closed down before any of the traffic can be diverted around that area. So First Street is going to become a lot more important to folks, I believe, that are trying to make it to Highway 77. I mean, currently, right now, they say through that intersection is nearly 38,000 cars on a daily basis. Going forward the next few years, up into the almost 60,000, I think I saw was one number that's up and coming, and I know a fair amount of that traffic is coming, through. It used to just be Sundays. We have another large church down the road, Christ Place, just a little bit farther down Old Cheney, and I know a lot of their congregation comes out our way to go out. But we found now that even during the week, it's hard to get onto Old Cheney, and you may have to wait quite a while. Makes it a little bit dangerous sometimes for us, you have to sneak between cars and can't always see the Old Cheney light there, but just with that much traffic blocking. So that's what we just asked for consideration, even because as that is going to move and that's going to happen, we'll see a lot more of that traffic there. I know quite often the guys are having to come out and regrade, especially with the rain. Again, any of the dirt roads, it's a pain across the whole county, I know, for everyone. But that, it gets a little bit sloshy in there. I know we have also on our north side, there is a landscaping company that likes to take their trucks around and come down First Street to hit Old Cheney and to go back in town. And so I know we get a little bit of extra. The numbers aren't necessarily the highest sometimes when I know a count has been done, but the weight of those coming through has a little more wear and tear than the standard, minivan and little cars. So, thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Sutter? No, thanks again for joining us this evening.
Okay, next is Solem Milan,
One, yeah, just one syllable. Who could?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony we're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. So I'm Solem Milan. I'm the lead pastor at Lincoln City Church, same project. And I'm going to point out just maybe that you would consider that stretch again, the 1 mile stretch between Old Cheney and Old Cheney and Pioneers, just east of Highway 77. And I do want to acknowledge just some of our members that are here to just kind of support the whole thing. And we talked about them not everyone talking and keeping us here till midnight. And just so if you're from Lincoln City Church, you can wave around. Thanks for being here. I wanna thank you again for taking care of the culvert last year. I mean, that was tremendous. So we appreciate that very much. And it's held. They did a very good job of it, and we're very thankful for that. Now, we have been waiting for that road to be paved for 17 years. And and all those 17 years, I can see children that I remember. None of my kids were born there, and that are graduating from high school from the time that that's how long we've been waiting to see it done. And when I look at the 1 in 6 program here, it seems like now we were more hopeful 12 years ago than we are now, because we are not even on the radar right now. Now, there are many considerations to see whether to pay First Street. I don't think it's only the count that matters. Our traffic count is concentrated a lot on the weekends because it's a church. But there is a street just west of us, South Folsom, has the same characteristics as our street. And I know it was paved a long time ago. 1 mile range between Old Cheney and Pioneers. The building, there's a church there and a sports area. We have a church and Wilderness Park as well on the other side. The traffic is very similar. Now, with 17 years in mind, I've been able to see the shifting priorities. Of course, the city is growing, the county is growing, the needs are ever increasing. I look at some of the projects with the bridges, I'm like, wow, the safety is there. There's so many different issues. And but I think we need to consider, too, that the church being there, being a nonprofit, we maybe are not on the radar when it comes to revenue of taxes that are coming in. But it's a lot of people who live and work in Lancaster County. And the church is making positive contribution to the community. And with respect to families and household and of all walks of life, all generations. And in fact, I would argue that there's probably not a church in Lincoln that you would find that attracts that much diversity from the socioeconomic to racial diversity. And we're making a positive contribution in this community, people who work. And it's the road not being paved is presenting a lot of problems for us, because I think because we're standing alone, it seems like I'm almost like an abandoned area, and we're dealing with vandalism. We finish services on Sunday. I come back just to the office to pick up one thing, and they watch parking lot is tore up by people doing donuts and whatnot. It gives a sense of there's nothing going on here, but it's actually quite the contrary. Things that cannot be quantified necessarily by dollars and numbers, but they can if we were to do a careful study. So I do want to submit to the commissioners that you would at least consider this street again, not for how many people drive through there during the week, but by the contribution of all the people that attend services there and the things that we do in this community. And so we would really appreciate if we could take a second look at it and get us back on the consideration here. So I was disheartened when I saw this, because we've been coming here for almost 2 decades now, and 10 years ago, 12 years ago, the prospect looked a lot better than they do now. So with my closing, I'm going to say this, is that the changes and the priorities will continue to change. The city will continue to develop, the county will continue to develop, and priorities will shift. And I think ours is not any less important than it does for where maybe businesses that generate more revenue for the state in tax purposes, people do contribute to the community if we were to do that. So thank you so much for all that you're doing, and I want us to consider again Fast Street between Old Cheney and Highway. Okay. Old Cheney and Pioneers.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Any questions from Mr. Wani?
I know that you brought your children to county engineering for a tour after you were here last year, and they always come and they sit up front, and they're so well behaved. And hopefully we'll have some future county engineers, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I know they had a really great time, and I appreciate you bringing them out.
Thanks for your time too. Appreciate it.
The final person signed in is Brad Wirtz. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Good evening. I too also was concerned with the same paving that we just heard about on First Street. One is the dust. Really a lot of kids out there, and actually the dust gets pretty bad when it's dry. Of course, not now. Now it gets kind of sloppy. But it's a concern that there's some elderly folks there and this sort of thing, and the church has grown, and a lot more traffic there. There's more than one day a week it's being used. It's used like almost 4 days a week, and pretty much somebody goes out there all the time. And then another concern I have, or a question I have, and that concerns you, Pam, is the second stage paving, that we have. A lot of those roads don't seem that bad. What's the consideration on? Because that seems like a lot. We're spending a lot of money on paving roads that's already paved. Is there a guideline?
You want to answer that?
So, sure. We actually rate the pavement every year. We drive over all of it. We photograph it. And then we try to see if there's some trends going on with that pavement. And so the pavement is all rated on a 100-point scale. You have to be really careful with asphalt, because once it deteriorates so far, then that means you have to redo the whole slab. And so we look at the asphalt, we core it, and we try to decide what is the best maintenance practice for that asphalt. People see it, and sometimes they see cracking, and they think that that's bad. And it's interesting because we overlaid North Branched Oak Lake last summer in conjunction with the Nebraska Department of Transportation. We cored that, and we determined that we had actually 12 inches of solid asphalt underneath the surface, which looked really bad. And so it just needed a 2-inch overlay, not a 3-inch overlay, which was a cost savings. But there are actually 10 different criteria in which we consider overlaying a road. We are behind. We're about 70 miles behind in the need for roads to be overlaid, because, of course, we don't want to let it go to the point that we have to grind the pavement back to gravel surfacing like they've done in Omaha and like they're doing in Iowa right now. So.
Oh, because I was kind of considering some of those roads didn't seem too bad to me. Of course, I'm not an expert, of course. But anyway, that was my concern, and I'm going to appreciate your time. And again, I want to iterate that the traffic has really increased on the First Street, and I'm not sure where it's considered what the city stops and the county starts. Is that right in the middle of First Street, or?
I believe it stops right at Old Cheney.
Actually, the city stops right at the railroad tracks.
Oh, okay.
So then Wilderness Park, people don't realize the city maintains it and is in charge of the park stuff, but the county actually still owns Wilderness Park.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
it's all county.
So I was kind of wondering, they have a facility out there in the city, but, all right. I didn't know if it'd be better for them to annex and get the road paved better.
We
All right,
would like
thank
that.
you for your time.
Thanks. Okay, that was the last of the individuals who had signed in. Is there anyone else in the audience who did not sign in that would like to testify in the neutral capacity or in opposition to the 1 and 6 plan? Come on up.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Hi, my name is Eva Trejo, and I also go to the Lincoln City Church, and I only want to say one statement. From everything that I've been hearing, we've just been asked to pave one road because we, as one unity from the church, we pave the road for many. that's pretty much what I just wanted to say. I was encouraged to say that. It was a message for me to give to you all. So I'm just saying again, 1 to 6, if we can look at a 1 to 2 year project here to get one road paved, because we pave the road for many. That's all I have to say.
Could I get you to sign in real quick so we have the proper spelling of your name? Do you have anyone else in the audience wishing to testify? Okay.
I would just like to take this opportunity then to thank everyone for their time tonight. I know that we all have a lot of things to do, and that I probably think this is really exciting, and not all of you necessarily do. And so I appreciate the time you've dedicated tonight to the roads and bridges of Lancaster County. Please know that it is an honor for me to passionately serve you, and that I will strive, along with my staff, to improve the infrastructure at which you drive every day. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Commissioner Brinkman?
I just wanted to note that this hearing is part of our process regarding the 1 and 6 plan, and so this plan will come before the board for approval and a vote at one of our regular Tuesday meetings. And so we thank you all for coming and providing the input to us, because that's kind of the series, the process that we are engaged in, to take the draft that the engineer has brought us, then take your input, and then have a final vote. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. And again, thanks all for coming. And yeah, like I said, I think we'll have take action on the 1 and 6 in the next few weeks. And
Correct.
so with that, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing for the 1 and 6 Road and Bridge Improvement Program.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Please call the roll.
Brinkman,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Amundson,
Yes.
Welchen.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, thank you. And again, thank you all for coming, and have a good night, and hope you stay dry.